Hello down here, welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery, where we're helping you get your practice to the $2 million mark and beyond. So I switched it recently from 1 to 2 because I was talking to this doctor recently and she was wanting some help getting her practice. So specifically she was wanting to get her practice from 1.2 million to 1.4 million. And I think when we talk about change, and you want to go from 1.2 to 1.4, it's not such a dramatic shift to move us to think outside the box. There's a good book called 10x is easier than 2x, and it's a lot easier for us to think about ideas that will get us to the 2 million mark versus the 1.4. So this is going to be a preamble to our conversation with this other doctor that asked me this question. So if someone is already at 1.2 million, one doctor, right? So this is the goal, each doctor getting to 1 million. And what I've shown before is that to get to 1 million, you have to produce about $80,000 per month. That equates to about 20 patients a day at about $200 per visit. So if you want to go from 1.2, which is where she is at and where I am at, to 2.0, this is actually a good work. So it's not about more hustle or more ideas. It's really about leverage and focus. And these are some things that I'm kind of talking to this other doctor, but I'm also talking to myself. So let's first look at the math, what this is going to mean. So if we're going from 1.2 to 2, that's a gap of $800,000. And for us to make that gap in production, okay, that equates to about $67,000 more per month. So what it currently means, like right now I'm producing about 100,000 per month average. And so that's going to have to go from 100 to about 167 per month. Okay, it seems like a big number, but it is something that's possible. Okay, so let's look at a few things that you can do, that we can do, that I can do, okay, that all of us can do. So I think that the number one lever really is, what is the way that can bring us kind of the least amount of stress and give us the biggest lever for increasing our production? And I really think that is to increase the revenue per patient. So is there a way that for every single patient we can increase our revenue from, say, $200 per visit to $300 per visit? So doing that revenue increase can help if we have a lot of patients. So how can we just increase that like $100 per patient? So if you're already at 1.2 million, you're already working on some great things for your revenue production. But I think one of the challenges that I go through, right, is kind of getting bored and kind of a variance in the way that I present to patients, and also leakage, meaning patients kind of not following up or not following up with the recommendations. So what I need to do is increase my number from 200 to 300 or maybe even 400 per visit. So how can you do that? Well, this is what we're kind of thinking about. So the one thing that I'm saying I could do better of is I have my treatment sheets, which are really my prescriptive treatment sheets. So every patient that has a diagnosis, by using a treatment sheet, you're not really cutting out on stuff, okay? The benefit to the treatment sheet, I feel, and sometimes I get busy and I like pull it out the first visit, but I don't always pull it out the second visit, so I'm not offering the other things. The nice thing about the treatment sheet is you say, okay, this is what you don't need, and this is what works the fastest, and this is what we can do later on. And so I'm really good at doing this the first visit, but when they come back the second visit, I'm not always good at refreshing that or using that treatment sheet again. I'm kind of going by my brain, but I think this can help me to stay more focused. And something that I've done recently actually is dividing the care into phase 1 and phase 2, and I think this is going to make it a little bit easier for the treatment sheet. So phase 1 are the things that we do like the first visit or the first or second visit. Usually things that are covered by insurance, so they get people a little bit better, but then the phase 2 things tend to be more expensive or people that have already tried the phase 1 things. And so by doing this, I think it gives me a reason to go back to these sheets. Now, if you don't want to use the sheets, I also have these in my patient presentation. So some of the more common diagnoses is like Achilles tendonitis, plantar fasciitis, forefoot pain, neuroma, onychomycosis, things like that. So patients, you can guide them with this, and I think by using it more consistently, we're going to be able to do this. So this is one thing, would be doing the phases and using the treatment sheets more. Another thing to increase the value is having certain types of triggers. Okay, so bringing out the sheet in visit 2, but also having a way of improving my conversation. I've talked about this isn't my kind of struggle with, but with discussing things with patients, I find that selling the vacation, this is what I've been talking a lot about, and as patients come back, I say, okay, you're here today, you may be a little bit better, but you're not all the way better. Like, what would it be like in your life if you were totally pain-free? And how bad do you want that? Like, and they say that, I really want that. And so I think offering that for patients can really help. And I think one of the things is selling that vacation, but I think another thing is the conviction behind it, like really believing in what you're offering them, that it's going to work and that it really is the best thing for them. And I find sometimes if we don't believe that, and I want to give you an example. So I have a hard time doing laser for nail fungus because I really don't have a deep belief system in it. And so because of that, I'm not really able to do that. If I had a deep belief that it really, really worked and I would have this conviction about it, I could do it a ton. That's why I can do so much shockwave, because I do believe it works and I know it works. So I think adding this belief system and kind of guiding patients and just increasing the visit value of every single patient. One thing that really helps me to increase the visit value is writing down what I do after each patient. So I have a little treatment tracker that I do. So increasing the high value patients, but in the same way, reducing the low value patients. And I've talked about this before. A lot of my follow-ups, I'm doing a 10-minute follow-up, so it doesn't take me as much time. And for other things, I'm trying to put them together, like my routine days. So putting those all together. The next thing that we can do to get to the 2 million mark is, so let's say we take every patient, and instead of just doing 200, you can increase it. And so this is most likely going to come from shockwave and from orthotics and from amnio injections. For me, those are the things that it's going to come from, or in Swift, I guess. But those are the high value items that I have. I do not think getting to the 2 million mark is going to be by doing EBM. Okay, it's not going to be about that. It's going to be about being more structured in my shockwave offerings and doing a lot of more of that. Okay, so the second thing would be setting up more programs, right? So we have the heel pain relief program, we have the nail fungus program, and we have like other types of programs. And I think this is good because when someone gets into the program, this is going to bring in a lot more value for patients. And so what I mean by programs is the phase 1 and phase 2. So everything that we have, you can fit it into phase 1 and phase 2. So if they're not getting better in phase 1, then you're going to automatically go to phase 2 and offer it to them. And one thing I think would benefit me, and I'm kind of talking to everyone here, is if you guys are really sold on, I know I was talking to one doctor, a friend of mine, Marco. He really believes in his laser. And I'm like, I could see it as he was explaining it to me. And I'm like, I wish I had that belief. And I think some people have said that to me, like about shockwave. I wish I had your belief. So, and I don't know, maybe I just have to believe in the laser and just do it, and then I'll get the belief later. But I would love to know if any of you really, really believe in the laser. And because I have a Remy and I have a Lunula, kind of how you do it, and maybe I'm doing it wrong. Because if I could believe it, I could sell it all day, and it's something I want to do. And I've almost thought about doing it the same way. I'm kind of rambling here now, as I used to do with shockwave. So in the beginning with shockwave or ultrasound, I did it almost for free because I wanted to see if it worked. I wanted to see if I believed in it. So I've thought about doing that also for like Remy and my Cutera, like doing it. I talked to one doctor, and she has this really rigid treatment process where she grinds the nail down. She has them use bleach once a week, has them use apple cider vinegar once a day, grinds it down and really does a really deep a laser on it, and she believes it works, and I'm like, wow, I want to have that belief. So I'm thinking maybe I can even do this free for some patients just to get the belief. Because I think if I had the belief, then I can do it all day long, and that would just add a big pillar there for treatment. Because I already have it with plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, forefoot pain, and things like that using the shockwave. The one I want to add with the shockwave is getting comfortable with saying, okay, instead of $1,500 for shockwave, it's now $3,600 because we're including amnio and orthotics for every single patient. Now that is I think adding that to every single Achilles or plantar fasciitis or metatarsalgia, that would be a great jump. And I think to add that, it has to come from inside of me and having the belief that this amnio really, really makes it so much better and really speeds it up so much more. So a lot of times I tend to prejudge patients, and I've gotten past the shockwave because I know that works. It's just adding the amnio and then adding the other things on top of it. So once again, if you're really good at that, I'd love to hear from you and we could chat. So I'm kind of making these the standard of care, right? The standard of care is instead of just offering shockwave, now every patient I'm offering shockwave, amnio, and orthotics. And if I could just do that for every one of those musculoskeletal, that would be a great thing, okay? Another thing would be like the empty follow-up slots. Something that we still have, and I still have, is certain days are a little bit slower. There's open slots certain times of the year. I don't have a great recall system, and staff don't really know who to call and who to recall. So I don't have a great system for that. I'm good at getting new patients. I'm good at having the patients come back, but I think some get lost through the cracks. So I think for me and maybe this other doctor, if there are some gaps, finding a way, even you could use your EMR to help recall these patients that maybe that didn't make a follow-up, that haven't been seen back. I think this could be some low-hanging fruit because there are open appointments that could be filled, right? So for example, for me today, I'm at this 1.2 million, and I still had open slots today. And if those were all filled, I think easily that would bring to almost the 1.5 or to the 2, right? Because of just these open spots. So getting really kind of almost deliberate about trying to pull patients forward and trying to fill all those slots. Maybe not with new patients because we're already trying to do that, but also with like recalling, have a really good recall process for that. Okay, so adding those can really turn that. And then I think the other thing would be having a great referral system. So we do get referrals from patients, but I really don't have a system for going out and doing lunch and learns, going out and doing these types of things, like having a quarterly touch with these doctors, sending them some information that's valuable. I think this will really, really help. For my practice, this is something that I'm not currently doing. I send letters to all the patients, but there's no other current low-hanging fruit with doing that. So in my specific practice, I think this having some system for referring doctors and maybe even somehow referring this out or putting a staff in charge of this and also doing those recalls are going to really help. And the last thing I think would be kind of buying your time back. This is something I already do, but having a scribe help with everything, this really helps. Having pre-built explanation sheets or treatment sheets, using the staff, have the staff used to lead things. So these are the things that I think could multiply. I feel like those are going well for me. The things that I could work better at are recalling a lot of these patients that don't have a great follow-up system. I know some other doctors do. I just haven't implemented it, and I feel like I sometimes feel apologetic to ask my staff to do more things. But I think those two things would, having a set-aside time to go and recall the referral sources and communicate with them, and also recall the patients. I think this would really, really help increase the bottom line in my practice and get me to the $2 million mark. And so I'm going to try to figure out a way of how I can use either my new outsourced team to do that or talk with my office manager and make that a priority and every month until it's done. Okay, so those are the things. Hope that was beneficial. This is for you because we're going to be having a talk soon about getting your practice to the 1.4, but I hope you may try to get to the 2 million mark. And these are kind of things for me as well. Okay, once again, I hope you guys found this beneficial. If you want to learn more, go to podiatrypracticemastery.com, and there's other resources there for you.